Hi, I'm Amber. I'm going to talk to you about data. The name on the slide shares the current name of my PhD, and it has all this beautiful campaigning by numbers, but I feel like when I say data, most people don't think of the satisfying activity of colouring in between the lines, and instead people feel fear. I don't know how to get this to click, there we go. People feel fear. People think of GDPR and all of the legal responsibilities that we might fail to uphold. We think of Cambridge Analytica. We worry about our own data and if we're doing the right thing with other people's data. Similarly, data is associated with government surveillance, which creates a similar dilemma. While we want to protect our privacy, are we protecting our audience's privacy? And finally, when we're not thinking about how successfully manipulative it can be, we're thinking about how rubbish it is and how we shouldn't be using data at all because it's just about vanity, it's about choosing a number, it's about chasing something that's not very useful for the organization. So yeah, we think doom. That's what data really makes us feel and fear. But I would like to try and bring it a little bit closer back to the peaceful feeling of colouring in. There are still so many ways that we can use data, and we are all still using it because it can help us communicate, it can help us know how successful our websites are, it can help us do research on the basis of campaigns and evaluate the success of them. So I want to talk about how three parts of my findings that that might help us work out how to do it well. And really it's about consent. An individual has given you their personal private data in exchange for something from you. And that might be for good communications, it might be because they want to help you achieve your goals as an organization. So that's why they've given you that data. And while this idea of consent might be obvious, it isn't actually that obvious in the world of the digital world, in the world that we're all working in. Because consent comes with an assumption that partly that your practices will be transparent. So I'm going to share with you three questions that highlight the difficulties and hopefully are good questions to walk away with that have come up from my findings around the difficulties of being transparent and getting consent around data. So firstly, when someone gives you the data, they sort of assume you know what you're doing with it. I found through my research that almost all data was in the responsibility of only one or two people in an organization, usually the digital communications team. And nobody else in the organization really knows what they do with the data, or in fact, what that person does at all. Other teams describe the digital communication professionals as annoying gatekeepers. At the same time, they would, when I said, well, would you like hold of that data? And they'd just be like, nope, no, that's not my responsibility, that's their responsibility. So it was a weird dichotomy of that. And it meant that the people who were in charge of data were usually in charge of setting targets, but they couldn't ever really achieve them because they weren't given any ownership over the content that was going to be used to achieve those targets. My other small finding around that was that the IT department also has a lot of knowledge and skills, but everyone hates them, so nobody wanted to work with them. So my first question to you is, do you take and share responsibility for the data in your organization? Do you know who has the expertise? The second one is, although this is a little dramatic, and we probably don't have the money in most of our organizations to have the sort of high-tech technology that we think of that will feel like it takes over the world. The computer programs that we use and the database programs we use manage the way that we work. Maybe you've had to input information into a database, and because of the way the database is formatted or because of the form that you have to fill in, you actually have to limit what you wanted to put in. You can no longer put in the information you wanted to put in there. Or you've changed it to fit, or you've just had to leave stuff out. Similarly, you might have had to change database system, and when you've moved data across, you've just lost a section of the data, you've lost sections of supporters, because new databases, they couldn't do that translation properly. So my second question is, are the programs you're using designed to help you answer the questions you want to answer? Are they helping you fulfill your goals, or are you limiting yourself because of the programs you're using? Are the programs controlling the way you work? And finally, my last finding is about the audience and what are they consenting to. So Avaz run an annual survey to their members, and they ask, what topics do you want us to work on? They very much want to be listening to people and using that data to guide their work. And right at the end, they say, how should we use this survey? How do you want us to use this data we've collected from you? Should we listen to it, or should we really just use it as a guide? And the majority of people said, we just want you to use this as a guide. We don't want this to be, we want you to be the experts. And we like that you're the experts. So keep making decisions as you want to make them. So when you gather, my last question is, when you gather data, does your audience know why you're collecting it? And are you using it in a way that they would want you to? Or are you making assumptions on behalf of your audience? So a summary of the 3 questions. In conclusion, it's all about consent and transparency. There are a few ways that in the digital world that's quite difficult to get. So have you taken responsibility for how the data is collected, processed and used? Do you ensure your programs are designed for what you want? And do you know if the data really represents your audience and their opinions? I'm going to be continuing my PhD for another year, and part of it's a survey, so my final thing is a request. I'm going to tweet about it, I'm going to send it out to the email list, and I would very much like, it's only going to take 5 minutes of your time, I'd very much like for you to share it and fill it in. Thank you very much.